So Ed, tell us a little bit first about what you do and what you do in the industry.
Well, what I do is a citrus grower, and I grow citrus.
But what part of where are you in the state?
In Central Florida, Lake Wales, Haines City, Dundee, that'd be the areas.
And what's the name of your company?
Just D. Edward Dickenson.
Okay. All right. So we were talking a little bit about Gilbert Bowen. I know that's what we
Yes.
wanted to discuss. So tell us your knowledge of Gilbert and what has he done for the industry?
Well, for the industry, Gilbert was one to really think outside the box. Anything new he would try, and anything he thought of he would try. And he had the wherewithal to be able to do things like that. He became a real good friend of mine later in life, and taught me a lot about, it's all about the roots. And I really profess to everybody, take care of the roots, the top will take care of itself. And Gilbert was really big in organics. He loved to try and work with organics. Problem we always had was weed populations in Florida, but everything else, it was organic for Gilbert. The other thing is, I remember late in his life, he was actually putting out 16 or 20 tons of compost per acre in a grove, or it wasn't a grove, it was just land. And he was getting it ready to plant when he was 93, I believe.
Oh my.
And he was on the tractor doing all that. And I kept telling him, like, Gilbert, you shouldn't be out here. Well, I can only do it right. I'm the only one that can do it right.
He was always a doer, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he always had a new idea. I mean, Gilbert was always doing, and he was extremely large harvester. And he told me stories about back in the late 50s that you bought groves, the fruit for cash.
Right.
You didn't buy on the boxes. You just bought the entire grove fruit for cash. And they had gone out and he was in partnerships with Bob Paul.
Right.
And another fella out of Lakeland that had a packing house. And they were buying all this fruit, and you have to give half of it up front and half of it later, and a freeze came. And Bob had a heart attack, or thought he had a heart attack, because they had bought all this fruit and they really couldn't cover it. And Gilbert, the other fellow, they went out and were checking the fruit, and they had never seen freeze damage, so they didn't know what to look for. And he said, we kept cutting fruit, and he said, all this looks good to me. And the guy said, I think we could pack this fruit. And so they went out and bought more fruit and went to go see Bob in the hospital and told him he bought more fruit. And Bob said, oh my God, I'm having another heart attack. He got up, put his clothes on, and left with them, just left the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
With the three, so the three of them went and looked at fruit and cut fruit all day long.
And they were good. That was the year
and
they
it was
were good.
And
yes.
they made so much money that crop that they bought all new harvesting equipment.
Oh my gosh.
And so they had all this new harvesting equipment. Everybody else had junky stuff. So a lot of people came to them because they had good looking equipment, and they had the money to be able to pay the half and pay the second half, where a lot of harvesters weren't able to do that.
Right,
So they really
yeah.
grew their business dramatically at that point in time.
That was called bird dogging, right? Isn't that what they
Well,
called
yeah,
themselves,
that's what they were,
dogging?
bird dogs.
Yeah.
And looking for fruit, but they were big.
He had told me
Yeah.
a story at one point where the freeze was coming or something, and they used to go and take people's newspapers out of their mailboxes so that people wouldn't find. Did you ever
No,
tell you that
I
story?
didn't hear that story. But that sounds like something they would do.
What were a couple of the other things you remember about him?
Well, he was an extremely active fella, and he told a story about going fishing with Bob Paul there in Winter Haven, and an alligator came by, and Gilbert said, I'd give you $20 if you would ride that alligator. And he said, whoop, over the side he
Bob
went.
did?
And Bob went over and held on to that alligator for a while and then let him go, got back in the boat. Where's my $20?
Oh my.
Those guys had a big time airboating and
Right.
everything. They knew how to live.
That's funny.
They were just characters.
Now he also helped with the MaxiJet program, from what I understand. Didn't he send Tommy Thayer over to research that?
He sent Tommy over to I want to say Israel, to
remember where it
research
was. I know it was
research
overseas.
the microjet company, and then they came up with MaxiJet and made some engineering changes to it because he didn't like it went to a too small area,
Right.
and Gilbert wanted to, he wanted to mimic overhead irrigation, which you can't do, but that was his goal. He wanted a bigger area because it's all about the roots with Gilbert. So he wanted as much area covered with water as possible.
And that works. That's what we
And-
do now.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Right.
So-
What were some of the other innovations that he came up with that you remember? 'Cause I know you said he thinks out of the box
Yeah.
a lot.
I'd say the biggest things was he was always big on organics and getting your the carbon ratio right in the soil, and he really talked about that all the time when even the university never talked about it. He was always talking about you got to get your carbon ratios right. You need a 6-to-1 ratio, but he just knew it all. I mean, it's amazing how smart Gilbert was.
What did he think about the whole HLB thing? Do you know any of those?
Well, I'll tell you what he thought
Discussions?
about HLB. Soon as it, and I should have listened to him. Soon as it showed up, he sold every grove he had.
Oh, wow.
So that's what he thought about HLB.
Well,
He said this is a disaster because he'd go back and forth to Brazil all the time,
Right.
and it saw what it could do, and that he noticed that the psyllids were much more prevalent in Florida than they are in Brazil. So he said we're going to have a harder time than Brazil. When he came back, he said you can't hardly find a psyllid, and he's talking about groves that weren't even sprayed. You couldn't find it, and here we had just thousands per tree.
Just cover it
And he
up.
said we're in big trouble.
That's tough.
And they liked our environment better than they liked Brazil's environment, which goes back to the high heat all the time in Brazil.
Okay.
And when you get high heat, the psyllid doesn't carry Libobacter.
Got it.
So he said we're going to have a real rough time.
Well, hopefully they'll find something soon. Gilbert was one of the people that I remember being behind the scenes of a lot of different.
Yeah, he was behind the scenes with my groves.
Was he?
One of my groves was down in Lake Wales, and I was giving a talk in Lake Wales Country Club. And after the talk, Gilbert said, "Let me ride with you. I want to show you a problem area." So I said, "Fine." So we rode down to this grove down in Lake Wales. He said, "What do you think?" I said, "Well, Gilbert, this grove's abandoned." He said, "I'll sell it to you cheap." I said, "If you're selling it to me, it better be cheap." He says, "I think you've got some good ideas. I want you to use those ideas on this grove." And we did. And I bought it from him.
Oh, wow.
And it was a good deal.
That's a great story.
And but he was always doing stuff like that for people. And I know he was big in helping Matt Green was a
Matt.
caretaker for Gilbert. Was
Okay.
taking care. Well, Gilbert transitioned into grapes, muscadines,
Right.
and peaches, and blueberries, and he was funding all that, and then just kind of like turned it over to Matt. And like the peaches, he decided didn't work right, so he just pushed all those up. But they still have the muscadines and some of the blueberries. I think he got out of he didn't like the blueberry business or something. So, but anyway,
Short
he
window.
had an idea at his ranch there off the Fire Tower Road
Right.
of putting that into one of these, I forget what you call it, where you bring tourists in, the
The agritourism.
agritourism.
Okay.
That's he wanted to transition that ranch into agritourism, where they would have citrus, like he had lemons out there,
Right.
and the grapes, and people would come out there and see it, and he had it all set up. But he died before he could ever
Is Gina going to
finish
do
it.
that for him? Or, do you know?
I'm not sure where that is. Whatever
Yeah.
happened, but he was always an interesting fella.
He definitely was, and a nice guy.
Oh
Really
yeah,
nice
super
guy.
nice guy.
So
Help anybody.
absolutely, and I know there are several people now who think he should be in the Hall of Fame. And one of the criteria that we look for in the Hall of Fame is, somebody who has done contributions towards the industry that have been significant. So what do you think would be probably, one of his most significant contributions to the industry?
Well, the significant contribution was how big he was in harvesting, because we have to have harvesters, and they were a giant harvesting company, the Bowen brothers.
Okay.
And he was the outside guy buying all the fruit, locating the fruit. So that was a big contribution, as he had all the contacts to move this fruit. And the other thing I think is just his perspective on soils. People, we killed our soils with all these herbicides over the years. Because I remember as a high school and college working for Haines City CGA, we planted 3 cover crops every year, and they were just dynamic, and you had virtually no weed pressure because of the cover crops. But back then we disked both ways. We didn't have microjet and everything. You could disc all around a tree, and they put in those 3 cover crops, let them go to seed, and then you disc it up. Well, he said he's thinking that's not really a good idea. He's big on the cover crops, but he wanted multiple seeds, not one variety each time. He wanted 3 to 5 each time you went out there. So you have a lot more biodiversity with bacteria in the soil and fungi that are beneficials in the soil, because you'd have all these different root systems going. And I thought that was just a great idea that he had. I mean, no one had that but him.
And now it's become...
Now it's kind of streamlined that people are doing that, but Gilbert was doing it long before anybody else, long before. Because it was all, and his mind worked in a way that he could see that biodiversity under the soil was really important to have it. And then you had beneficial biodiversity because of the cover crops, all the different flowers. You brought in all these different beneficials to the grove, which goes back to his liking organic crops. Is you had all these beneficials, and he said, you get enough beneficials out here, you won't have psyllids. It's just going to take 3 to 5 years for all these beneficials to realize they can eat psyllids. And he was in cattle too, and he said, you change grass on cows, they won't eat it. The cows won't eat it. And it takes a while for a cow to realize that it's edible, so you had to plant your old grass field in with the new grass field, so they would eventually graze it and see that they could eat it, because they were real skeptical about eating something they haven't seen.
Right.
And that's the same way with insects. The beneficials are skeptical about eating something they've never seen. So, but now we've got really good beneficial back going again.
Well, that's great.
So,
I know I've read some of that in some of the early books, and like from H.H. Hume, some of those early ones, they talked a lot about cover crops back then. So I think that's interesting that we're getting back to that now.
Yeah, I did a lot of it for Haines City.
Yeah. So I was sorry to see Haines City go down. I didn't realize you'd worked for Haines City.
I worked there in the summers for Haines City.
Okay.
In school, and during school I worked in high school, but in college I worked all the summers for them. I had a spray crew and did all the spraying.
Who was the general manager then? Was that Red?
Bud Costner.
Oh, Bud Costner. Oh, was that the Costner manufacturing guy?
No relation.
Okay.
No, he was the production manager. I don't know about general manager. General manager may have been Matthias.
Art Matthias. That's what I was saying. Art, yes.
I think it was
because Art's in the Hall of Fame, so I was curious if that was...
Art used to come to the house all the time, and his sister lived across the street from us. So he'd come by and he'd bring this 5-to-1 ratio concentrate.
Right.
You have never tasted orange juice that good until you have 5-to-1, and he'd bring it. We put it in the freezer. You can't freeze it. It's always so you could take the container out and just pour a little bit and then add water. Put it back in the freezer, because you can't freeze 5-to-1. That's the way they stored the juice.
Okay.
Stored concentrate. And I kept telling them, why don't you sell this? Well, we sell 3-to-1, which you freeze, and it's ice crystals. And I said, well, I don't understand it. This tastes better than 3-to-1 stuff.
Well, it tastes better and it's easier. You don't have to wait for it to thaw.
Right. And I never could figure out, and they never would do it.
I never heard that
But
story
that's how
before.
they stored the juice, was this 5-to-1 ratio. But he'd bring us containers of it. It was just unbelievably good.
Now, was that coming out of the Donald
Citrus
Duck?
World. Yeah,
okay.
the duck.
The
Donald Duck back then.
Right. Yes. So.
And a matter of fact, I bought some Donald Duck orange juice this year in
they
a
still
carton.
have Donald Duck?
Yes, it's in 16 states.
I did not realize they still had that either. I have some cans that have the duck
Well, these
on
were in
them.
the cartons.
Cartons.
And they had Mickey Mouse carton also, which is a combination, is like 75% less sugar, but it's different juices.
Well, that's.
And it's really good.
But they don't sell
They
it here
don't
in
sell
Florida?
it here. They sell it out west, 16 states.
That's funny. I bet they do that because of Disneyland.
I can tell you a funny story about that too.
Let's hear it.
They Disney, under the new management, came to Citrus World
Right.
and told them they didn't want them using Donald Duck brand anymore. Because
Right.
they see it out west. And they said, "What do you mean you don't want us? You can't use it. It's trademark infringement." Wait here. They went back in the vault, brought a letter from Walt Disney, and laid it on the table. Don't touch it. You can read it. And it says right in there, Walt Disney giving them all this stuff because Citrus World pulled Walt Disney out of bankruptcy.
I didn't know that at all.
And that was the gift from Walt. You can use our trademarks forever. And they've got rights to Minnie Mouse, Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, all these things.
I know they had one of the original celluloid things from Donald Duck there in the office at one point. I don't know where it is now, but I remember seeing that before.
I don't know either.
Wow,
Probably
that-
in the vault. I don't know.
Probably. That's
But
interesting.
they pulled them out, and then they said, the lawyers from Disney said, "Oh, okay," and left. And that was it.
Oh my gosh.
No more controversy.
But they don't use the Duck brand anymore at Citrus
Yes, they
World,
do.
they?
They use it out in 16 states.
So it is being packed here and sold out
Yeah,
west.
it's packed
Okay.
at Lake Wales.
Okay, I didn't
That's
realize
why
that
I was
at all.
able to get it, because
Oh.
it was packed there, and I wanted some.
Gosh. Okay, got
So
it.
and then
now.
I took it to a meeting. See, it's still available.
I want to get some of that.
Go to the Grove House,
Okay.
and they have it there during
When they're open.
when they're open.
Right,
Yeah.
right. Okay. That's funny. So give us some more good stories.
Well, I'm trying to think of some more stories on Gilbert, but probably can't tell them.
Well, tell them and I'll edit it out. How's that?
You can edit it.
I can edit it, yes.
But
Especially if
Yeah.
he does get into the Hall of Fame. It'd be nice to have that on tape. So
well, nah, better not. But I just love Gilbert, and he'd call me all the time. During the
Right.
week he'd call me, "When you coming out?" And I go out there and visit with him. Oh, and he had the chickens. I don't know if you knew about that.
nope, did not.
He back to organics. He had all these chickens out there, a huge coop, and I don't have a clue how much money he spent on this coop for these chickens, so they lay eggs for him, and he had it in rotation, so he'd plant these cover crops inside the pens, and they'd use that one for a while, and then he'd close it off, and they'd use the other side as they grew up because they'd eat it all down.
Right.
And his coops were both double-sided, so he could close off one side, and then when you put them on the other side, he'd open and close off
Did
the
he
other
think
side.
of that
So they
himself,
always
or-
so they always use the same coop to lay their eggs in. And then they would walk around in his yard during the day eating insects and everything. And I had to go out there just to watch the chickens. They're hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So, well, he was an innovator on a number of different fronts. So, and what are some of the other things that you can remember that he came up with?
For citrus?
For citrus mainly, but I mean, he has
Uh,
some good stories on other things too, but
Yeah.
citrus mainly.
Well, I just keep his forward thinking on how important carbon and the organics is for the root system.
Okay.
Because if you can get the organics out in the middles,
Right.
then you can sustain roots. And you pull up these trees today in the sand, there are no roots except where the microjets are. But go to a grove that has cover crops, the roots go all the way across,
Wow.
even with greening.
That's
And that's why I've got cover crops going in all my groves. Now I'm going back to what Gilbert told me to do.
well. Hopefully that'll work.
I think it'll work. I got a good stand of cover crops.
That's great.
But it's hard work because you got to figured out seeding, and right now we're building a roller crimper, so we can roll the cover crop, crimp it, and kill it.
Okay.
There, and so you have long stems, so you have a lot more organic than mowing it, where you have little pieces.
Right.
So it lasts longer, and you can build your soil up better.
Well, that's interesting.
But you can get about 7 tons of what we used to call green manure. I guess I don't know what they call it today, but they just compost.
Compost. Yeah.
But we called it green manure back when I was in school, and they crimp it, and you create a layer of green manure. It goes down, then you seed into that.
Okay.
Well, then you have a better area for the seed to germinate in, because it'll stay moist and has more oxygen.
Okay.
In that type of soil, and you build it up over. It takes probably 3 years to actually transition totally.
And how long have you been doing that?
2 years.
Okay. So third year.
But next year will be the charm.
Yes.
It's still work in progress, and I coming up with the crimper and trying to do that kind of stuff, and
okay.
That's the biggest thing.
That sounds great. So who are some of the other names? And I shouldn't say names, but because we and I'm saying you and me both, we grew up with some of the people in the industry who were almost larger than life at the time.
The biggest one I can think of, and is because I grew up with the family, would be Dix, L. Dix Incorporated, Leonis, and he came from, like Gilbert. Gilbert had dirt floors where he grew up in Eagle Lake.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he lived in a nothing house on Eagle Lake, and I think there's like 4 brothers or something. They all lived in a 1-bedroom place with dirt floors.
What did his parents do?
Worked in grows.
Who'd they work for?
Oh, some Eagle Lake family down there.
Okay.
He never really said who they worked for. They were just grow workers.
Okay.
And the boys got together and could build this harvesting deal, and that's why he was in harvesting, because of his parents. That's what they were, fruit pickers, and then they worked in the grows too.
So that's how he was growing up.
Yeah, he grew up with that.
Okay.
But he grew up with nothing. Well, B. Dix, same story. They had nothing coming out of the Depression.
Now, where was B. Dix located? Was
Dundee.
Dundee. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And B. Got into harvesting from Snively's.
Okay.
And Mr. Snively told B he was so impressed with how hard a worker he was.
Which Snively was this?
The original ones. I don't know.
Is
A
that
long
Robert?
time ago. I don't know.
Okay.
They
John
were
or
big
Robert?
citrus
Probably John
company,
then.
and he did harvesting for them.
Okay.
Well, then he told him, bought him his own truck and everything. He wanted him to harvest. Didn't want him going everywhere. Wanted them to be harvesting their stuff.
Okay.
So that's how he got started. He had a truck and a trailer, and Mr. Snively helped pay for that. Off of the harvesting.
Okay.
And so he built up an unbelievable business, and then because he was harvesting citrus, he figured out, I don't know, back you see these citrus trailers and they have hoops on them and cover. Well, B came up with that for watermelons. So he could use his trucks and trailers more efficiently instead of just parking them like everybody else did.
Right.
He'd use them almost year round. Because he would harvest watermelons all the way up into Indiana.
Oh my gosh.
And he was big watermelon, and he had the Publix contract.
Oh my gosh, well that's a good one.
Yeah, and because he's a hard worker.
Yeah.
But I remember they would harvest the watermelons, and we'd have hay, and we'd pack the watermelons in hay in those big trucks.
Okay.
Not like they do it today in those shipping cartons, the 10 bins.
The 10 bins.
Well, they just had them loaded in there on hay, and then we'd deliver them, and B would move them to the right containers for the stores, and then we'd have to get rid of all the hay again because it had to be fresh hay every time.
Wow.
Because you'd get a leaker or something, and then you can't put a watermelon in there where it's wet.
Right.
And it's funny.
And those are hard to harvest because they're so heavy.
Well, they were heavier back then. They didn't have seedless. The sangria seedy, that was the king of the watermelons back then. And I would say that they were 14 to 20 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
And then we had Earl Greys, which those things would be 30 to 40 pound watermelons. I mean, they were giant watermelons, but certain people really liked those Earl Greys. But most of them wanted that sangria because it had a better taste. But they were all seedy. And I can tell you a funny story about that. Harvesting watermelons down in Wauchula, and they had pecks in the watermelons out in the field. And we didn't have cell phones or anything. So one of the fellows went to a guy's house that owned the watermelons, Coleman, Mr. Coleman, and he was partners with B on these particular watermelons. And he called B up, and B was up in Dundee, and he was in Wauchula. I think it was 5 minutes. I don't know how in the world he got there so fast. We were still in the field. I mean, it didn't take him any time. He comes roaring in there, stop harvesting, and he went off with Mr. Coleman. They looked at everything. Okay, just stop. Throw them all away. And left. We had pecks on them. And so we didn't know, and he said, it'll be all right. You can pick watermelons 3 or 4 times.
Right.
So he said the second picking, we'll have it all figured out. So we come back, and the watermelons are perfect with this picking. And loaded up, and Mrs. Coleman comes out. You boys hungry? And we're teenagers, of course we're hungry. And she said, I got some chicken and rice here. And we said, great. So we're eating the chicken and rice. So Mr. Coleman said, do you boys ever eat sandhill crane? No, sir. Yes, you have.
Yes, you have.
Well, the sandhill cranes like seeds, apparently. And they could smell the seed inside that watermelon, and they were pecking, trying to get the seeds, but they couldn't, so they just pecked everything.
Oh my gosh! So no, he got rid of that problem.
Yeah, he said, "I'll fix this," and he did.
That was kind of like Pate Snively when he was trying to clear that place over by Lake Lulu, I think it was, and they wouldn't let him clear it, so he just put goats in there and let the goats clear it off.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that.
So. Did you ever do anything for Willard Rowe?
Other than I did some stuff, not with Willard, but with Bill.
Bill? So.
And looking at these new varieties
right.
that they have, and just working, not physically working, it was later in life.
Got it.
When I would go look at their grows.
No, I just remember Willard because he was such a force.
I never met Willard Rowe.
You didn't?
No. Yeah.
So he was quite a character. Very fond of him. So.
I like Bill a lot.
He's a sweetheart.
Yeah. Bill's a good guy.
So, well, the whole family is. Mm-hmm. So what was it? Was there another story you were going to say about Dickenson? I interrupted you. I'm sorry.
Well, I say the biggest thing to Dix is that when he bring in harvesting, all these other harvesters had to come up to his level, which they never could. When a Dick's Grove was harvested, there wasn't a can, a bottle, a piece of paper left in that grove.
Oh, how nice.
And growers really appreciated that. So it made other people a little more conscious about when they harvest, not to throw all this stuff, junk in your grove anymore. So I'd say that was one thing, is he was so meticulous about how you leave a grove. You leave a grove in better condition than when you went in there, was his thing. You want that grove to look better when you leave than when you got there.
How nice.
So they'd go out and pick up cans from whoever, and he really rode those guys, make sure it was clean. So the people really liked that, and he was such an honest guy. I remember a story. Well, there was actually a pile of letters thanking him for harvesting their fruit. And he picked them up, and he's reading it, and he said, Ed, how bad is this industry? I said, what? He said, people are thanking me for doing what they're paying me to do. That's crazy. I just did what I told them I would do. He said, apparently a lot of people don't.
It's hard to
But
find
he had a
good work.
stack of letters thanking him at the end of the season.
Oh,
People
wow.
writing him letters, how great it was working with him.
That's wonderful.
But the story was, then he had a story on being, I won't tell you the fruit company. And I was telling him, I said, D, look at my loads. Is 0.6 culls, and it went all the way to 60. And I said, you've been in my grows. I don't have 60 culls in a load. He said, no. He said, you don't really have 0.6. And he calls and he says, you know that Dickenson grove? Yeah, I was written down wrong. It's really a Dix grove. Oh, could you check these? And all of a sudden it was 0.1, 0.2.
Oh my gosh.
And he says, it's a shame our industry is like this.
Yeah.
He said, it's just a shame. And he said, Ed, I have to do this all the time for my customers.
Really?
Well, he said, I'll see these ridiculous cull rates. He said, I'll call them. He said, well, really, they're a partner of ours in a grove, and they get it changed.
It's like the mafia,
Yeah.
skimming in Vegas.
They're just skimming. They might as well be Democrat congressmen or something. Skim.
Okay.
Don't
Well,
edit that part.
No, don't edit it. Okay. Well, I appreciate you being here today and doing this. And if you have any more time and any other stories you want to tell me,
If I think of some.
yes,
Because
absolutely.
I think of them all the time. I think I was just thinking of Gilbert just the other day, because I have a grove out on Hatchinall Road, and it goes out to his place,
Does it?
And then we went out to eat at the FFA
Right.
thing. It's closed right now. We'd like to eat dinner out there, and going by Gilbert's, and always go by and his smiling face.
Absolutely. And I didn't know he had passed until recently, so I was really upset that we didn't get to interview him personally. So,
Oh yeah.
anyways, but
Well, he died doing exactly what he wanted to do, because he was working that grove
Was
I
he-
was telling you about on a tractor that day, and it was 100 degrees or whatever, and it got off, and he was bad about taking. He was a big believer in cold showers.
oh man,
So, and I still say that he was taking a cold shower and had a heart attack in the shower, because when they came home, he was on the floor there and thought, well, he had slipped, but he had been taking a shower. And I said, I bet you anything he was so hot, because a friend of mine, that happened to a friend of mine, had a heart
Oh
attack.
my
A guy I
gosh.
played football with. Got cold water, and he was real hot, and he had a massive heart attack. And I said, I bet you
wow.
that's what happened to Gilbert.
But 93, eh?
Yeah.
He lived a good life.
But he was riding a tractor.
Okay, so tell us that other story about B.
Okay, I came in and I had a grove out on Hatchinall Road, and it was Valencias, and it would be harvested late February every year. And B came in, he said, you need to cut some budwood off those trees out there. That's when you legally could do that.
Right.
And he said, those like magic trees. He said, they're 7-pound solids in February
Oh my gosh.
every year. And I said, yeah, that's probably a good idea. That's when I had my nursery back then.
Right.
I said, that's probably a good idea. And he left. I turned to Rick and I said, I didn't have the heart to tell him that used to be a grapefruit grove from 1928 onward. And there's so much arsenic out there, there's no insect could possibly live out there. And the arsenic made Valencias pass really fast,
Right.
because you couldn't put it on Valencias, but it was all in that soil. So those Valencias were ready real early every year.
Now, do you still have that grove?
Oh yeah.
And it's
Well, it's been transitioned several times, but it's all Valencias back to Valencias again.
right.
But and I had this grove. It was navel oranges, red navels,
Oh,
and
nice.
and I was talking to B about it, and he said, "You went ahead and planted red navels up there," and I had another grove that had 8-pound solid Valencias every year. And if the freeze came, the '89 freeze,
Right.
and I planted it into these red navels. And he comes up, and I'm talking to him about it. He just walks over and hits me in the back of the head. He said, "Red navels, that's fresh fruit. Ed, I can't help you with fresh fruit. We're a juice family." And he says, "You're like one of my boys. Why didn't you talk to me before you made a decision to plant red navels? You put that back in Valencias right now." "Well, I already planted it, sir." "I don't care. Put Valencias in there."
Oh my gosh.
It's Valencia's. But he just slapped me in the back of the head. It's like one of my boys. You didn't listen to me.
That's funny.
Yeah. He said, I can't help you with that fresh fruit.
Oh my.
But,
And Valencia's today it is.
yeah,
Okay.
both of them.
Thank you, Ed.
All righty.